Hey everyone, welcome to the stream. I hope everyone's having a chill Thursday evening or morning, depending on, or Friday morning, I guess, for some people or whatever. Uh, Today is something a little different. This is a thing that I want to try, and my friend Haru uh, generously complied to test this out, and I'm sure I have a lot of stuff that will help her. So I'm excited to just hang out for a little bit, help someone learn new things or try different things with their art. So I hope you guys get something out of it too. It's like the first half is just gonna be me going over her stuff that she shared with me, and then the next part is we're gonna be drawing on a canvas for a little bit, and I'm just gonna add a little bit of podcast element to it, just to shake things up a little bit. So. We're gonna go to the media room and say hello, Haru.
Hey everybody, how's it going?
All right. Okay. So we got a few people here. Maybe raise voice volume about 2 levels. Are you talking about me? Or Haru? Let me open the volume mixer because. No, everything's 100%. Mine? I mean, mine's pretty high up. I'm not sure what I mean, I'm gonna put it all the way up, I guess. Very quiet on your end. Okay. Very quiet on your end. Let me see input device. Let me see if oh, okay, hold on. Properties. Let me see if let me try the filters of this thing. Compressor. Let me see if the let me see if the compressor is compressor. No, not this. Shit, I hate this so much. That. Okay, there we go. Shit. Noise suppression. I'm not limiter. Yeah, I can. It's visible like the. Oh, you know what it might be? I know what it is. Can you guys hear this now? No, I don't know.
For me, I can hear you fine, I suppose, because
yeah, I think it's something. Maybe it might be the limiter, or let me see. The limiter, no, it's not the compressor or output gain. Let's see. Oh, is this okay? That's really fucking high. Is this better? Is this better?
Yeah, they're saying that it sounds better now.
Okay, good. All right, perfect. The mic's like literally on my face, but all I had to do was increase the limiter a little bit. Okay. All right. So let's see here. Okay. So what I have here, I'm gonna actually. I forgot to pull up the. Jamie, pull that up. Let's see. Oh wait, hold on. Copy image. Oh, why is it not letting me copy? I guess I have to download this. Yeah. All right. CSP will like. I don't know. Like, okay. So let's go over. Oh, you know what? Sorry, I'm being a space case. I'm just gonna put a little bit of music. Lo-fi. Copy. Lo-fi, copyright free. This one, yeah. I'm lowering the volume here. Okay, so let's go over some of the stuff that you kind of mentioned that you wanted me to look at. So, yeah, okay. So, by the way, Haru's an exceptional artist. She does really amazing traditional stuff, does a lot of pins and stuff. And you can see here, like, lots of floofy girls. Very, very awesome. She does a comic too. And we'll let you plug. I'll let you plug in your stuff later, if that's cool.
Yeah, no, totally. That's cool with me.
Okay, yeah. So traditional. I wish I could help with traditional. I haven't done much of traditional in like a very long time. But you handle your watercolors pretty well, so I don't really think I need to tell you too much on that end, other than like some of the stuff that I might tell you digitally might be applicable on traditional, maybe mostly on the line art part, because for watercolors and stuff I don't know how to handle like coloring. I only do like the grayscale stuff for comic work and stuff. That's kind of like it. But if we go to digital, I think I'm gonna focus a lot on coloring, because I know that's something that you want to work on specifically.
Yeah.
So a lot of the coloring that I've seen, you know, you mentioned small hard shadows with airbrush blending, and I, you know, if you'll permit me, that's something that I used to do many years ago, and it's kind of like a habit where you see some like soft shading and immediately you go to, well, I'll use an airbrush to do the shading, and or to add like some certain levels of shadow. Yeah, Haru's inspired from Clamp, and it's amazing. So here, one of the things that I would say is that we're gonna have to go over some of the basics of shading. So this is the piece that you showed, like, you know, you sent me over for the line work. Here we can see, for example, a lot. Let me grab my pen. I forgot my glove. So I can see that you have some hard shadows here and there, but I think that your some of the stuff where you're not pushing hard enough is that you don't have enough contrast with the shadows. You're taking a very watercolor approach, and you told me that sometimes it's intentional because you kind of want to add that watercolor texture to it. But I think that watercolors can have that level of contrast that will help you push some of the shadows, or like the lighter areas, like you're not gonna have to color them or like add too much to it, because you have like shadows that help bring them forward. In terms of like, for example, shading hair, what you do with the hair, I can see, like, you know, the strands, like even if it's at a texture level, like from afar you can tell there's like a flow to it, and there's definitely the shine that's really pretty. And you know, you have a lot your way with textures, so that's a good thing that you have, like you're good with textures. And I think that's because you also handle traditional media, and so you kind of have that on your head where subconsciously I think you handle textures from digital pretty well. In terms of comic stuff, on a digital level, your line art is very good. You have very crisp and thin lines, which is something that I personally struggle with. And I think, you know, it's really good for line art. For coloring, it's pretty awesome to have thin lines, especially with what you want to go with. Because you gave me these two examples. And for example, this one here, having thinner lines helps a lot, because you're going to let the colors, the shading, the textures and stuff kind of define the body and the volume and the weight, rather than letting the lines do the work, which is normally something that I do a lot personally. And so
Yeah, I personally noticed that too. That within my line art, it's the thinner I go, the better the colors kind of seem to pop as far as like rendering and everything goes. So I've actually been trying to go more into that direction.
yeah, so I would say keep it. But for comics, that's a different story, and I'm gonna tell you in a second why. So now that we have like all of this, because this is your references, like Clamp and all that kind of stuff, it's like, you know, not subtle, but in a good way, right? Like, you do a very lovely interpretation of your own style with these influences. So I'm gonna go over something very important before I talk about the rendering that I did. So I'm sure you've seen this like exercise like tens of millions of times, where it's like the rendering of a ball, right?
Yeah.
However, there's like it's shown a million of times because it's very important to know these kinds of things. And sometimes, like, even if you've seen it and you've understood what they're telling you, sometimes you kind of just like, you know, you don't really like pay attention to it or like keep it in mind. And it's always important to go over the basics. So, for example, when we're going through here, through this specifically, right? A lot of the stuff that you see here is already present in this. So we have a light source that's coming from here. And the reason why you have like a light here is because light bounces everywhere, right? You get some of the light bouncing there. And so when you render, you always want to have like that. Here it's exaggerated. This is too much, but noticeably a little bit lighter, where the shadow doesn't completely go dark unless it's like against the wall. Then you're going to have very little light coming into that surface. Ambient occlusion, you know, there's a reason, like, you know, you have your harder shadows here because the ball is close, like it's whatever closest to the object that's emitting the shadow, you're gonna have like a darker shadow. And so in these two examples, both here and here, you know, you're having a harder shadow because the face, for example, is casting it really hard here. And this is almost cell shaded, but you've seen Flux's work where he does do that mix of cell shading and soft shading. And here it's a little more, the cell shading is a little more pronounced. The thing here is that it fits your style because the colors are not that harsh, but the contrast is enough where it brings up the other colors.
Right.
So this is something that would be good for you, where typically you want to go for that watercolor, lighter feel, because a lot of your art also, like your theming reflects a lot of the colors that you choose, where a lot of your stuff is very wholesome. And your color choices certainly reflect that. And that's you know, that's pretty good. So, you know, keep this in mind. Like, for example, I'm going to color pick here and just, so this is the base, for example. This is the mid-range, and then this is a darker. They're not like between this one, like the base and the darkest color, there's not a lot of difference, you know.
Yeah.
So that's something that you can keep in mind, and it gives that it gives the impression that there's soft shading, and there is a little bit, you know, in the light area and stuff, but it's mostly cell shading. And using lighter colors or like hues or contrast that's not that different gives a more natural feeling and more softness. In contrast, where you have the clothing here, where between the lightest color and the darkest, there is a bigger difference, right? You can tell that there's a bigger difference, and it gives that feeling of more something that's, I'm gonna say like man-made or something like that, or something that like, because this is like clothing drape, and so you get those folds a more like a stronger impression.
Yeah.
And
There's way more contrast between it. It would be way more. It's more crisp.
Yeah.
Like, the difference in it is way more crisp than if it would be like, you know, let's say skin or something more organic.
Yeah. And you can do like a mix between both, but I think here it's intentional because they want to accentuate the softness of the character. And it's also why color choice is important, because the character has a reddish tone and this has a more bluish or purple tone. And so this splits up the image, right? And you get, it helps the other colors come up. So you have a purple here, and then you have a purple in the eyes. And so the color choices are pretty much more obvious because you're letting certain areas stand out a little more in terms of color choices. And, you know, you have a little bit of blue here, etc. And then with the pink hair, there are more harsher shadows, but because they're drawing the hair in clumps. And again, it's to accentuate the softness of everything else. And hair is usually more sharp. generally
Yeah.
speaking. But that's, hair is such a very specific choice. That's something that, you might, for example, feel attracted to the way that the skin is drawn, but not necessarily the way the hair is drawn. And then you'll probably look at a different way. Like, for example, you'll probably like this one better or something. Where here it's softer, but it still has like that dark contrast where it helps bring something out. Another thing that I do want to point out in terms of like drawing hair, the reason why a lot of people will use like and you'll see it in a second with my version, where people will generally draw the hair that's behind the character less. Like they'll probably just grab a darker area, like do this, or like they'll do like this instead. Is to you need to keep in mind that you want to add detail to the things that you want people to pay attention to, and less detail to the things that you don't necessarily need people to pay attention to. That varies piece by piece and overall like stylistic choice, but generally like the drawing in this part feels a little busy because you have all the you have a lot of parts that are showing the strands and textures and stuff, but then you're having these areas that are rendered and you have texture here, so it makes the image a little busy. So you want to, I mean, that's just something that's just food for thought, right? Like you can do whatever you want. I'm just saying, generally, for example, I like to focus on the body a lot, and I will render my main focus usually is the head. So you'll see where like my eyes are very detailed and the hair on the top and front is very detailed. And so are like typically like this part, the torso is also very detailed. And so that'll be usually my choice of thing. It's a tug of war that you want to play, and you want to like figure out that stuff in a way that's suitable for you. And it's a lot of experimentation, like maybe do a layer where you try different things, and it's an evolving process. But that's one thing. But yeah. Not sure if you have any thoughts so far before I move on.
I mean, I've been taking everything in, and I've actually been writing notes too. So
That's good.
yeah. So like, I'm definitely taking in everything that you're saying. But yeah, I mean, so far everything does it really makes sense. And something that I have noticed recently, especially when working on like my comics and stuff, is the contrast is definitely something that's kind of like a problem for me, and I just never really noticed it until I like really started working with comics, because I typically keep a lot of stuff in mid-tones. There isn't a whole lot of range.
Yeah.
So that's something I feel like that can be transferred over into my digital illustrations too, because everything is all very mid-tone and there's not a whole lot of contrast between, the light and the dark. That makes things makes the image pop. So
yeah,
that's something I've definitely been noticing a lot of lately. So that's something I need to work on.
Yeah, I mean, typically the advice that I will give for this kind of stuff is make a drawing that you don't really care too much about, or that doesn't really have any inherent purpose. Just draw for the sake of drawing, and really go to town on the contrast. Like, don't worry about like it looking good or not. It's just something that'll help you figure something out. You can even take the mermaid sketch and just like go over it and see like, okay, how can I do it differently, and just try things. And even if like the final result isn't perfect, it'll at least give you a sense of like, oh, okay, I'm slowly understanding what I'm doing. I'm slowly figuring things out. And don't be afraid to like, because a lot of the mistake that is done with color choices is that, at least for me personally, is that someone will have like a mid-tone, like a basic, and then they'll just go like, okay, so I'll go darker, and then just pick a color that's just a tinge darker. And it sometimes will make the drawing look a little gray. But you kind of like, it's cool if you grab like a different hue. And I've seen you do it. You kind of have sometimes like a different hue for the dark area. and it just helps like the drawing look a little more lively. And another thing that always helps is that once you finish like rendering, for example, you go ahead and you go to like you know, tonal correction. You go look at like hue, saturation, and you play with those values a little bit and be like, oh, I like this like it needs to be a little bit more saturated. Instead of like having to guess colors, you can just go ahead and like go play around with those settings just to like try to figure something out, and it really, really, really helps.
Oh yeah.
But yeah,
So I have to do that more.
yeah, no, play around. Like post-processing is a thing. And it's very important to, like, a lot of people just like color something and then call it a day. Like, it's like take 30 minutes to just like not post the image, or like to look at it, or before you call it a day, or like, you know, stop, stand up, go do something else, come back to it, and then look at like the colors, mess around with the post-processing, like hue, saturation, tonal curve, and that kind of stuff. Because then it'll help you figure out what you need to be doing, or like if there's something that could have used a fix or something. There's a lot of things that you can do.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, so
Yeah.
let's look at the render that I did. Let me grab the original image for comparison. And this is gonna be copy image. And I'm gonna put it all the way up here. Still here. Okay. Shit. Okay, there's a chat. Okay, so what happened here? Sorry, hold on. Something popped up. Okay, never mind. So, I did a little bit of rendering, and I went as simple as I could, just so that it was easier to understand. So, what I did with the rendering really is not rocket science. Pretty much, for example, for the boobs, what I like doing usually is grabbing like a dark color and just like grabbing a brush like this, and then adding the light source. Because sometimes it's easier to go from dark to light than it is from light to dark, I feel.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, you do something like that. And generally, what you want to do before you even like consider blending or anything, define all your shadows. At least not the darkest one, at least the one in the middle. You want to define it everywhere, so that it's easier to like go, okay, no, it needs to be a little darker. And another thing is, like, once you have that, find the areas where the shadows would be the harshest and just like go over it. Don't blend this because you want this to be like the part that stands out the most. That's gonna help the drawing stand out.
Okay.
Rim lighting. Rim lighting is not necessary, but I like using it, and especially considering she's underwater, for example. You want to have her blend in with the surroundings. So you'll pick this color, and I picked like an aquamarine almost, just to blend it and do that, right?
Yeah.
For blending, I have a brush that my friend JDF shared with me that can be hard, right? If I press really hard on it, or it can blend, or just be a soft brush. But for general use, you have, like, let's pick this. You have this, you have that. When you grab, like, let's say a blending brush. So I use a blur brush that I've sort of changed the settings so it blends better than the blending brush. And you want to be soft on it. You don't want to do the blending like this, because then you'll lose the shape. You kind of want to go soft on it. And then the areas where the light would hit the hardest, you can blend a little bit more. But you want the blending to feel more like it's going further away. So the more further away that it is from the light, the harsher it's gonna be, and that sort of jazz. For things that are like, and not every time you have to blend. Like for example here, it would like, you know, it would blend a little bit. Sorry, hold on. It would blend a little bit, like here, right? But I don't think it's necessary because this area is already soft, and so having this have a hard shadow, like casting a hard shadow without blending it too much, just helps to give the illusion that it's floating a little bit.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's literally it's literally playing around. It's just playing around with the shadows. For certain areas like here, the way that the face exists, for example, or the eye, let me red so it's not bright red. The way that the eye exists is mostly like, well, I have a sphere here already. You have this, right? Where are you? There we go. So you have this. The eye is pretty much this, right? You have this. This part over here is pretty much just this. It's just the top of the eye that is, you know, finishing the roundness of the eye is just finishing. And then you have this part that pretty much is this, where it's on the face. It's pretty much that. And so it would make sense that this part is dark, and like for at least the way that the light is coming in through, and this part lighter, because in here you shaded this part but not this part. It's just a minor thing, but I kind of like, but it's like it's sometimes difficult to determine, but because light is coming from this way, it will naturally just, this part would be lighter and this one would be darker. However, if it were reverse, where the light is coming in from the bottom, then this part would be light and then this one would be darker.
Okay, yeah.
For highlights, I generally avoid using like pure white, because I think pure white kind of I don't want to say like is bad. It's just more attractive to use like a color that's not 100% white. So for example here, where is, okay, so here we have like a color that's more orangey, but then I'm using like a complementary color which is on the opposite side, and it just pops out a little more because it's, you know, an opposite color. And you know, little tricks like that. Or you can use a color like pure yellow, and well, no, in this case it might not work out, but an adjacent color might work too, but that's just a personal choice. Using white is fine, but you kind of want to think like if she's underwater, using like blues to like give some highlights or some effects here and there does help, because it kind of blends her in the surrounding or makes it feel like she's really there.
Yeah, and she's not pasted against the green screen background.
Yeah, it's not a Zoom call background. For the texture here, for like her scales and stuff, that's something that you have to play around with, because this is a brush that I found that I overlaid, and then I did some like scattering, like spray effect on the skin for brightness, and then instead of like, then I did like a linear burn on the skin as a like a layer effect. For gold, yeah, for gold, like gold and metals are very specific, and you just have to take into consideration the way that like light reflects on it. Remember that like metal will like more easily absorb light, and the surroundings, like anything that's surrounding it, will reflect more clearly on the gold, especially having it be very next to it, and you're having light bounce directly onto it. And because it's like a circle, light's just gonna bounce everywhere. Because it's not like it's a very like multi-polygonal surface. Versus it being like a flat surface that it would just bounce out one direction or one specific direction or whatever. But other than that, I mean, I think for you mostly in terms of rendering, it's just taking that. Oh, for hair. Okay, before I forget the hair. So see what I did here, where she's popping out more because I went in and I darkened the area around her. And then I added a little bit of the reflection of her scales, or like the scale area or something. Like I rendered it lighter, so it's heavier on the top, but lighter on the bottom. And so your eyes, like, you don't lose, your viewer doesn't get distracted from the rest of the drawing if your focus is on the skin, right? Or like on her body, like you're not distracting the viewer too much. You're distributing the visual weight of the drawing in a sense. Yeah, but then for this part here, I was just like playing around with, and like hair is such a personal matter in terms of ways that you render it, and that's something that you might want to, like, you know, take your time to learn and stuff. But it's not complicated to do like what's been done here. It's pretty much like a simple principle of just grabbing like this and then doing that, and then you take a little bit of the skin color and then you blend it in a little bit until it's like barely noticeable, but it does give like a difference of shading. And then you break up a few strands here and there, and that's it. It's not terribly complicated, but I went simple here. Hair is very simple to draw, but it can be very complicated. Depends really on what you want to do. But yeah, I think I mean that's pretty much it on the rendering side. Again, the important thing is higher contrast, blend softly in terms of like not being very, like, not pressing really hard on the blending. Don't use an airbrush unless you're gonna like airbrush some cheeks, or you're using like a hard airbrush like this one, right? Where it's giving you more of like something. But yeah, avoid, like, the first thing I tell people is like learn to blend without an airbrush, because the airbrush is unwieldy, and if you're not really sure what you're doing, it can kind of flatten an image a little too much. And so you want to make sure that you're laying down your foundation first and then blending appropriately. Some people blend a lot and the image comes out amazing, but that's because they're using a lot of contrast and they're adding harder shadows where it needs to be, and it doesn't take away from this, like, the softness of whatever they're trying to do, or like the way they're blending or painting. There's a few things that needs consideration.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but
I will openly admit I do abuse the airbrush a lot. So
yeah, forget it's there. Yeah. Forget it's there.
Yeah. So okay, cool.
Another few choices to keep in mind, like color choices that you've done well, is that you use the blues very appropriately in your image, or the blues and greens, where, like Hair is pointing out, like the eyes and the amulet and the scales and her like fin ears, have like the use of like blue, aquamarine, turquoise, or whatever. Like they're within the same like vicinity. And then you have the reds for the skin and the hair and stuff. So it blends pretty well. Airbrushing for erasing. No, that, like, you can use the airbrush. What I mean with avoiding using the airbrush is that don't add shadows with airbrush. Because if you don't know what you're doing with the airbrush, or being very specific, because I erase things with the airbrush a lot of the times, where once I have the harder shadows, I can definitely go in and start like doing something like this, for example, where I can sort of start erasing, and you give a sense of like there's a lot of light coming in, that, you know, in that sense. But what I mean is, like, don't go ahead and like start shading like this, because that's gonna be like hard. Like, unless you know what you're doing, it's gonna be harder for you to do. Like, from a learning perspective or from like a practical perspective, lay down your foundation, and then you go ahead with whatever brush you use for blending. You go ahead and you start, you know, blending in and stuff, and not like that.
It kind of goes the way I'm seeing it or understanding it. It's that it's kind of going back to that whole principle of work from dark to light. Because then if you try to go in with the dark, I feel like it can make it really flat. But if you pull it out, then I feel like, yeah.
Have you ever done like a charcoal drawing or drawn with charcoal before?
Yeah, back when I was in high school and college.
Yeah. So you know how like they tell you to like work with really darks, and then like for certain areas you can go ahead with your finger and blend a little bit and stuff like that. It's kind of like the same principle where the shadows are the ones that are defining the rest of the figure.
Yeah.
Because it's always better to work from dark to light, because once you go really light, the shapes get really lost, and you want, because like here she has like she has boobs that will cast a shadow, and in here that gets lost a little bit. She feels flatter, but in here her boobs feel a little bit more perky, or a little larger. But yeah, that's, you know, that's something that it'll get more easier with time, but yeah, as long as you're getting an idea or like of what to do and stuff, yeah, it's fine. There is a very good book by if you can find it, by Naoki, you know the artist Naoki Saito, or Naoki, he did a lot of the Pokemon illustrations.
Yeah.
So they have a really good book that is like a 3-month, like improving my art in 3 months. And it's pretty much, you pick an artist that you really, really, really like, and you're going to learn their style inside and back, inside, front, and back. And you're gonna draw like drawings, just literally trying to like copy the way that they do things. But not like because you want to copy their style, but because there's an inherent value as to why you like their art, and there's something that they do that is a reason why you like it, and you're trying to pretty much just learn everything. And at the end of that, like 3 months, you're going to take something out of it. So maybe like you like the way that they do hair, but you're doing everything. But by the end, you're more into the way that they do skin and less so the hair. But you took out like something, because like the first time you do it, it's not gonna look right. It happened with me because I picked Asanagi and like it didn't come out right. But then as I started working through it, I'm like, oh, I am understanding things that the way that he does. It like his style, my style became a little similar to his, but it's really my own thing, because the way that I do things now, it like I take eyes out of like from inspiration from him. Because the face is such a huge deal for me, that I like having big eyes, or like spending 3 hours on just the eyes just to get them right, because it's like the first thing that I do, and that's one of the things that I study and focused on when I was studying like quote unquote under him, or like about his art. So that's something. Okay. So that's a pretty cool principle that you could probably like. It just like it can be done at your own pace. You don't have to like really go crazy and do it in 3 months. You take your time, because each time that you do it, you'll learn something new, or you're gonna get better at it, or get some semblance of understanding. Because the goal after you finish it is that you take your art, compare it with the person that you're trying to like learn from, and be like, okay, where am I failing, or where do I need to improve, or what am I doing that's not working out? And then you can point out, okay, well, I'm not using like their use of colors is very different, or their use of or the way that they render this part is interesting, so I want to learn that, and like I'm not applying this. Or you might go and focus like, well, I want to start in the head because that's the part I'm having more problems with. And so the next drawing, you're going to really focus on the head. You're going to practice some exercises and stuff because it helps guide your learning instead of like, I need to just get better at general anatomy. Don't like, that's why I never like go and tell people like, oh, you need to improve your anatomy. Like, let's work one thing at a time. Anatomy is like a given. I have to work on anatomy. Jim Bob has to work on anatomy. Everybody has to. That's not like good practical advice.
Yeah.
Because it's very I don't want to say condescending, but it's very like, yeah, like thanks, I know. It's you
Yeah.
like for you, for example, I'm telling you your rendering could use some work in your contrast, and then you have an idea already. Okay, I'm gonna work on that because on your own, you're just gonna focus on getting better at anatomy because it's your thing that you're gonna do on your own time. Same with me. But when I show someone my art, they're gonna I'm gonna tell them like hone in on something that you think doesn't work that well. That's not anatomy, because then that's something that that's more pragmatic for me to work on.
Yeah, instead of being just like a very broad term,
Mm-hmm.
it's something way more specific that you actually can work on.
Yeah.
So it's usually, for sake of critiquing and stuff, that's usually what, people are like, oh, well, this doesn't look right. It's like, okay, well, what doesn't look right about it? Can you be more specific?
Yeah.
Because, it's one thing to just say, oh, work on your anatomy or whatever. But I mean, if you really hone in on what is making it look off or what the problem might be, then that's way more helpful to somebody than if you were just to say, oh, that just doesn't look right, or that could use work, and not be specific at all about it.
Yeah.
It drives me nuts when people do that.
Yeah, I think another important thing is that style is a thing that always evolves. In that regard, you're like 10 years down the line, your style will be recognizable, but it's not going to be 100% the same that you are doing right now, because there are some things that people, their tastes over time change. Like maybe right now you're not going to like broccoli, but maybe later down the line you're going to change your opinion on it because maybe you ate like a really good stir fry that changed your opinion on broccoli or something, right?
Right.
Same with art. You're going to find a piece that maybe you don't maybe like the way that you do midriffs is going to change because you saw like a really cool art piece that changed your perspective on. Yeah. Meteor. So like work on how you draw hands, finger positions and stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's just things that are more pragmatic. But when you say composition, it's very difficult to just tell someone to work on compositions, because you actually have like someone might have like terrible anatomy, but their composition's on point. So you have to like, compositions are something that you have to look overall over the person's work and just be like, yeah, you're not using composition right. Like for example, do you mind if I use you as an example, Haru? Like this piece?
Oh no, go ahead. Yeah,
okay.
Go ahead.
So for example, in composition, you're fine because like you're gonna have like these lines here where it's practically like it's not a one-to-one, but yeah, you're keeping the attention where it needs to be, like this area here and then another area here. But something important to keep in mind is that a lot of people just think, oh, like they call it a day and that's it, like it's a golden ratio or whatever. Something important about composition is how are you guiding your viewer's eyes. So for example, your eyes are immediately drawn to the face here, but that's because this is a darker area and this is a brighter, like a much brighter area, and you have like big eyes, so your attention is drawn here. The hand placed here will slowly come down here and then be guided here, and you do something like this, and because of the way that the body is shaped this way, you're also guided this way. It's just, and like the hair also helps guide where, you know, it's going this way, you know. It's I don't want to say like advanced level stuff, but it's like forward thinking. So a lot of professional people that I've taken their classes of, like a lot of the Korean artists, they will take 3 hours just thinking about the composition before they even start drawing. Like they will think about, like, I'm not even joking, the physics of light, of the composition they're trying to make. And I'm not saying people should do that. I'm just like giving an example of like the level of thinking that some illustrators, because they draw for business or commercial, or like one of the artists that I took a course of, his name is Hula, and he draws for like the mobile game with the booty guns or whatever, Nike. And his approach is very, very professional, but also he will take his time to make like one single drawing, because it's professional work, and it's very it's for business, and it's intended to make money, so it has to be like absolute perfection in his eyes. And so he will take the time of like setting the composition right, thinking about the way that the character is laying about, the elements that are around it. And so he'll go through various iterations before he lands on something that's he can work from or build upon. And so yeah, that's yeah, but that's his prerogative. I take the initiative on that sometimes, but it depends on the drawing. If it's a CG that I'm doing for something specific, then I will take my time with it. But if it's like a commission, or if it's something that's intended to just be a drawing that I'm going to post on social media, I don't think too much about it, because it's something that people are just going to consume and move on. But for pieces that are much more important and have a purpose, then I take my time and thinking about it. But that's one way to do art, and everyone has to find a method that works for them. Hula's method burns out less art per year, but he puts out more quality. So his absolute number is more quality over quantity. That's not to say that some artists have a lot of quality and quantity, but his is like so over the top in quality that it's, you know, it's not comparable. It's your like it's his method for all of us. We have our own specific method. Yeah. But anyways, I want to move on to a different subject, and it's the comic stuff. So you mentioned that you wanted to move to color comics, right?
Yeah, just the way that it seems like the industry is kind of going nowadays, especially with webcomics. So
yeah, I have a friend.
It's something to learn.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying it's just, you know, something that would be really good to learn. Considering that's what people are mostly reading now, is everything's online.
Yeah. So are you familiar with an artist that is called Akio Sketch? He did a comic. He did a comic that's called Heart Worker. They got really popular recently. His comics are color comics, and his approach is a little more sketchy. His lines are thicker. And the thing about color comics is that they're you have to dedicate a lot of time to it.
Yeah.
But listen, I think color comics are nice. I am more of a traditional manga reader.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with that 100%. That's usually what I do. I still have mangas on my shelf I reference.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's just one of those skills I figured wouldn't be a bad one to learn.
Yeah.
But I mean, Mystic Waters, which is where Opal's from, you could read it on Webtoons, but it's all traditional manga. It's all in black and white. It's got screen tone. So that's the way I've always worked. And then even with Kitsune Kiss, for a while I was going back and forth between, should I do it screen tone? Should I do it colored? What do people be more receptive to? So, I mean, I hit a roadblock there a couple of times just because I just had no idea what I wanted to do.
Yeah. The thing is, like, sometimes we have to move the way that the industry is moving, because I I want to say the vast majority of people want to consume colored media. Sketches that aren't colored, for example, on Twitter, don't do as well, generally speaking, as ones that are colored. Even though I've seen some artists that do like a line with a white background and then it's like doing crazy numbers, but those are outliers. In general, people like looking at colors because grayscale isn't as attractive unless you're someone like an artist like Agaka, where like you're great, or like Krakow, where your use of grayscale has like such a high level of contrast and such efficient use of the rendering and a lot of like harsh lights for certain areas that it does turn into an attractive piece. But for stuff like webtoons and stuff, because of the overwhelming amount that the West uses colors for comics and stuff, because graphic novels in the West are typically colored, like your X-Men and Superman and stuff have always been colored. Graphic novels that use black and white are typically more of Japanese, Korean, Chinese thing.
Yeah.
For us in the West, like we need our bright colors. People need their bright colors. It's just more of a cultural thing artistically. So, yeah. One of the things that's important when you're gonna move to colors is that your use of lines is pretty good, but you're gonna have to start thinking in line weight a lot, because you typically have like sort of a uniform line, and for rendering and art that's fine, but for when you jump into comics and when you jump into color comics, you need to start adding stuff that has a little bit of more line weight, because it's going to help the characters pop out more. For example, here I think it's a combination of the choice of colors and the lines. The characters blend a little too, for my taste, they blend a little too much with the background. They're not
Right.
The image for me, this looks fine. This comic page is fine, but it's from like a creator, artistic, and editor perspective, this is not enough. But honestly, comic work is such a heavy work that sometimes you don't have time to think about that. You have to get it out. But I would advise to falling to that trap, and actually you have to start thinking about line weight a little bit, because they have that somewhat, but because they fall into this same realm of what you're doing with the airbrushing and like little use of harsh contrast, that the image sort of feels a little flatter. And so not, I'm not trying to diss this artist or anything, right? Like
Right.
it's good work. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just I'm being a critic here, and you have to sort of push this further, because this feels like it can use a little bit more and so with line work, that could use it. For example, even in this comic, you did it here, where I'm sure you felt like the line here was blending too much with the boob here, and you went harder because it would help bring the arm forward. And here you're losing the hand a little bit, and so you want to go a little darker in certain areas so that the hand pops out a little. It doesn't have to be too much, and the hand's not certainly an important element, but because you're already bringing this hand on top of this panel, it has to have darker lines because you made an intentional choice to bring it over here. And so it's just little choices like that, because like when I zoom here, I'm losing details over here that are blending into, because this halftone is almost similar to this halftone, and so you're losing the detail of the hair, and you're gonna have to start thinking a little bit more of line weight moving forward, especially if you're gonna be coloring, because you don't want to lose the detail of inevitably there are going to be some colors that blend in with each other, because that's the nature of characters belonging in their setting. I mean, you're not going to have like highly saturated characters, like panty and stocking characters with a background that doesn't make any sense, that is a little bit more grounded. So you kind of want to have like lines that are a little bit more. And so when you have lines that are thicker, it's gonna let you play around a little bit with here, because in here, I think these lips are touching, and the artist missed out on the on like a really good detail of having like a thicker line for this nose, so it feels like it's more forward. But then to indicate that the line that, you know, these lips are touching, you know, kind of blend the, like, you know, kind of lose the line a little bit. And then you see that how it like has this weight to it where it feels like the upper lip is touching with this upper lip.
Right.
And so that's just some stuff to think about. And so that's kind of like what I did here, where I didn't bother like rendering too much, because that was not the point. The point was to show you how line weight can do so much of a difference, where there might be a panel where you don't render at all, and you're just letting the colors speak for themselves, and you kind of want to let this speak for itself and add the contours, because in comics, the lines do all of the heavy lifting. All of it. Unless you're doing something like Berserker, where the shading is, even if it's in black and white, is the most important thing. Yeah, it's like, but you're going for a more simple approach. You want to deliver a comic and a story, and so if you make use of line weights, it's going to make it easier for you to render, because then maybe you might feel like all you have to do in this case, for example, now that you have like a certain, like, you know, shading here, you just grab like a darker color and then, you know, add this, and then that's it. You don't really have to do very much. People already got it. You add something here, add this here, well, you know, add this here, and that's it, right? You're letting certain things do the heavy lifting.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, you already have like a very good base with lines. Like you're very consistent. Just take that and maybe bring it up a notch. But again, that's something that you have to try it out for yourself and see if it, for you stylistically, works. And if you're liking that approach. Because if not, then, you know, you do whatever works for you. I just think that for certain parts, it'll, like, line weight will help things feel less flat or more dimensional without having to rely too much on rendering, especially for comics.
Right, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And again, like,
I know, like, typically with my line art and everything, I have kind of a very sketchy approach. So, you know, to make the line art be very clean is something that I used to struggle with, but now I'm starting to get a little bit better about keeping it clean. But that's been one of the hurdles, is just because I'm very sketchy. Like I draw in a really sketched, fast-paced way where I need to learn to slow down.
Yeah. Yeah, I think slowing down helps a lot. I tend to like rush certain things, and I fuck up certain details. But it's okay to take your time to look at certain details and like analyze things. Like, nobody, like, as far as we're concerned, we don't have a gun pointed to our heads. We have, like, you know, we're blessed that we have the liberty of taking our own time with things. Obviously, we're not going to take like 70 days to do something, but we have choice in the matter to take our time to deliver something that we're content with, and that is less riddled with mistakes or things that, you know, at the end of the day might hamper the enjoying ability of our viewers. I want to see if I can find. I've done doujins. I need to be very careful with what I pick. Let me see. Let me see if I can find. I'm opening a hentai on a YouTube stream. Hopefully that doesn't pick up. Let's see. because I want to pick. No, hold on. Someone uploaded my. Oh, there. Okay, my comics here. Okay, let me see if I can find a good page. All right, this is a pretty good example. But this was done more for exaggeration purposes. Here, let me go ahead and pull this up. So look at this panel. So here you have, like, for exaggeration or comical purposes, I made her lines extremely thick so that, like, she comes up forward, but also like you give this like shock feeling. But that was like a deliberate choice. And in here I have like the door being very thin. This was like my first like full comic that I finished, so there's some obvious like mistakes, but I made the choice to, and also like I wanted to add a lot of lines of effect and a lot of like a sound effect and like a speech bubble that would have been lost if the lines were thinner. And so like with this effect, she's the first thing that you see in the entire image, and that was like the point of that panel, and then the rest is just visible.
Right.
But yeah, it's just little things. I think I think you have a good base to just like bring that forward. But yeah, I mean I can send all of this stuff to you later.
Oh yeah, for sure. I
would
definitely appreciate it.
Yeah, and the VOD's gonna be there always, so if you want to go back to it, you can just like, look at a few details and stuff. But for now, do you have the canvas enabled?
I believe I do. It's pulled up.
Okay, let me put that. Oop, someone forgot that you would have been able to see the canvas. Hold on, I'm gonna make a new one. Just to avoid I'll send another invite in a second.
Okay.
There you go. That should be good. Okay.
All right, let me get to it.
All right.
Okay.
Then I'm gonna go and close this. Okay. All right. It's not a terribly big canvas. It's pretty small. Well, I mean, I say small because I work on 5,000 by 5,000. Okay. Let me go ahead and I want the pencil. Oh, okay. Well, I don't like this one. Okay, there we go. And then, okay. Yeah, this tool is pretty cool. It's like much more efficient than draw pile, I think.
Yeah, I've actually never heard of this. So, like, I heard of draw pile, but not this one.
Draw pile was such a nightmare to get going. But yeah, now is the part where this turns into a tiny podcast. But yeah, how many years have you been drawing, by the way, Haru?
I'm gonna say professionally, loosely, since 2015.
Since 2015? Okay. So you and I have been drawing for more or less the same amount of time, I think.
Yeah.
Because I graduated college 2014. And it wasn't until like a year after where I started posting my stuff online. But yeah, I wasn't making much of a dime during that time, so I can't say professionally.
Yeah, I've been drawing ever since I could remember. I feel like that's kind of the story for everybody. But when I really wanted to dive into this, like, as kind of a career, I think is the pivot point was 2015 for me.
What?
And I had not an idea of what I was doing. It pretty much started out with me just going to a convention that I managed to get into, and all I had was just a couple small prints. The first thing I ever invested was a button press, and I made more in the one day of the weekend than I did work in the 2 weeks at my part-time job that I was working. So me and was boyfriend, now husband, back then were just like, can you make this a career? Can you keep doing this? And so it's just like, yeah. So we've just been kind of going forward from there.
That's cool. Was he tabling with you at that time?
Yeah, he came with me to support, so that was super nice.
That's cute.
Yeah. So, but I couldn't get the entire weekend off for the show, so I just had to go for the one day, and it was just kind of, you know, what I earned in the one day was definitely more than what I earned in the 2 weeks of work. So it just kind of put stuff into perspective for me. And I couldn't finish college, so I went to college, but I couldn't finish. And I was just at a point in my life where I just had no idea what I was going to do with myself. So I managed to, because I was always talented with art, so I was like, well, what am I going to do with my life? So that's kind of where this kind of branched out into. And then over those years, I've been able to cultivate what I've been learning and improve, and definitely, you know, go out to conventions, do an online store, take commissions, and it just kind of, you know, went from there.
Yeah, you like every time you see posting something like, I'm doing enamel pins, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and it's like, holy shit.
I wouldn't say that I'm very proficient in one thing specifically. I'm very versatile with like a little bit of knowledge of, you know, stuff here and there. So I wouldn't be able to say that I'm absolutely perfect in one thing. I can, you know, I have knowledge of a little bit of everything: traditional, digital, 3D, screen printing, manufacturing, printing, because I've got printers and stuff. So it's just, I have a little bit of knowledge of a little bit of everything.
I have a very particular set of skills. Turn into Liam Neeson. By the way, so you do a lot of work, a lot of art and stuff, but you're also like a full-time mom, and like I'm not sure how many in our audience, or my audience at least, are also moms, dads. So like, how do you manage to like pull all this off and then still, you know, have time for your kids? Like I've seen pictures where like you're working there and the kid's like 2 feet away with the pool and stuff, and I'm like, how, like.
Oh my goodness. So it was definitely a learning curve, because some years kind of went by and I had just printed the first issue of Mystic Waters in 2019, and I felt like I was on a roll, and then all of a sudden we found out I was pregnant with our first son, and it was just like, oh boy. So I'm not gonna lie and say that having the kids, you know, it slowed me down, but I still managed to find time, honestly, just between naps. You know, like I would just go between their naps, and depending on when I put them to bed, I would work at night. I figured if I put them down by 9, I could work till midnight, and then I could typically get 6 or 7 hours of sleep if they were up by 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning, and that was enough sleep for me to be able to still function. But I mean, I do have an amazing support system. I don't know what I would do without them. My husband is incredibly supportive, and my mom actually just moved back from Ohio, and now she takes one of my sons twice a week to babysit, and that just helps me out too with trying to get some stuff done.
That's a big jump from like Ohio to like the East Coast.
Yeah. So, well, I originally was from Ohio, and then we ended up moving down here a number of years ago, and she ended up having to go back up there because my grandma had died and my uncle had died, so there was nobody to live in the house, so she went up there to live up there. And when I started having the kids, she just couldn't be away, so he decided to make the move back down here.
Okay, hold on. I'm trying to figure out like how to like rotate the. Okay, that's right. I should have learned the image a little bit. 'Cause I don't know how to rotate. Oh, there we go.
It's like I gotta say it. Gotta be honest. I have no idea what I'm doing on this campus. I keep working on something, and then a little pop-up thing keeps popping up over it. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm gonna just ignore that. But oh my goodness, I don't even know how this is. I don't even know.
All right, another. I don't know if the audience has any questions, but while they, if they figure out something, I'll keep asking questions. But, out of everything you do, like in terms of like products and stuff, like what's the one thing like you always like look forward to working on?
Oh, let's see. That's a tough one. Well, I know the pillowcases have been a new product of mine. Those have been selling pretty well. But I have to admit, I was working on Yai Miko for a pillowcase, and she gave me damn near art block. I had to back away from that really fast, or else I was gonna just fall apart. But I do enjoy working on those. But the enamel pins are fun. Like they can be fun, but they're very it's a big investment. They're really big investment, and you got to make sure what you're gonna make with enamel pins is gonna sell, just because it's such a heavy hit when they don't succeed. So but oh my goodness, I don't know if that's just settings or what, but anyway, but yeah, I do enjoy the enamel pins. Admittedly, I will say that, I did the pre-orders for the cafe pins and they didn't do so well, which was fine. Because you win some and you lose some. But I did the Genshin characters, and of course that's the popular thing right now, so everybody's all over it. So, but I do enjoy making those. And then I'm gonna try to get into the t-shirts. We'll see how that goes. Just because I feel like it's important to have something that's tangible. Because when people are browsing and shopping for products, it's important that what they're buying is something that is tangible. You can wear it, you can display it, you can show it off, you can use it. It's purposeful. You're not going to lose it. So as an illustrative artist, it's been kind of hard to balance that, because I do a lot of drawing and I don't have a whole lot of things that are tangible. So now I'm starting to think more about how can this illustration, this two-dimensional drawing, become something tangible for somebody to use? So put it on a tote bag because people need bags, or the pillowcases because people always need pillowcases, or blankets because you're always going to need a blanket sometime. Sometimes with the enamel pins, people like to collect them and they'll show them off on their canvas bags or their Eda bags or lanyards, or everyone needs their keys put on something, so there's lanyards. And
oh my god, what happened? Okay, there we go.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I don't know what
No.
happened.
I'm trying to learn this. I press G instead of H.
Oh goodness. So I don't know for you, but mine's like super pixely, and it's like kind of.
Oh, so you see,
brush?
are you on the so when you are on the brush, there are different settings that you can put on the right side. So you have like size, min size, density, opacity, stabilizer, shape.
Okay.
And you can pick a variety of things. So there's like ink, there's soft ink, etc. And you can change the hardness. You can change the hardness. So if the brush is like, feels really default.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. All right, that's a little better.
Yeah, but to continue on, like what you were saying, your art now takes a more I don't want to say like a business approach, but when you draw, you now take the initiative of thinking, okay, this has to be something that I can turn into a selling point. So it's not just like, you're not always just drawing for the sake of drawing. Like, I see you sketch a lot, and that's good for like when you have a little bit of downtime when the kids are like napping or something. But generally when you like sit down and you're like, okay, today I'm gonna work, your work doesn't involve just drawing because you're gonna go ahead and post it on Twitter or something. It's more of this is gonna be a docky, or this is gonna be a keychain or something. And it's one of the things why I've been explaining to people. I was talking about this with or at least he was talking about it, an artist called I'm not sure if you're familiar with Booster Pang, but he's working on certain products, and he made a good point that not safe for work stuff on products like that are, unless it's like a docky, are usually difficult to sell, because not everybody is gonna like. I want to say like 80% of the audience is not going to be very open to having like openly not safe for work stuff just lying about, or like having like an enamel pin of like a lady with her boobs like out and stuff, because that's typically not not like the standard, right? So those things tend to be harder to sell.
Yeah, so something that I have been realizing in the artist alley and just becoming more of a business aspect, and then also as a not safe for work artist as well. What I have been noticing is people have been asking about stickers.
Mm-hmm.
I guess like vinyl stickers to either put on their vehicles or put on like tumblers and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something new, but like I know that the booby mouse pads was definitely something that was is still around, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I've noticed unless you have a very like good design for it, you typically don't sell a lot of them, or I haven't. So like, because I had one design that sold really, really well, but then I had a couple other designs that just didn't sell very well. So, and those are big investment items too, actually, because they're heavy, so they're heavy to ship. But, yeah, but everyone typically sees Dakimakura is like, yeah, those are sexy and that's cool. But it is very hard to kind of sell not safe for work in the artist alley unless you have something that's, I guess, catered specifically to like what people are actually looking for. I have seen apparel, so like t-shirts and coats and things like that. So that's something that else that could be sold for not safe for work. But yeah, it is typically really hard. I've had a couple of shows come forward to me and have said, hey, your other stuff is okay to sell, but we can't have you display your body pillows because they're a little too provocative for the show, because we're you know, family friendly. And so I'm like, okay, no problem, I'll take them down, it's not a big deal, I have other stuff I can sell. So that's the other thing too, is I feel like not safe for work content would be a little easier to sell. You know, I said take it with a grain of salt, but it'd be a little bit better online because it's more private. You're not gonna go to a table in the public, and you got to show your ID in order to look at the books or go through the binders or the comics, the you know, the dojinjis and stuff. Whereas online, it's more private, and you don't have kids behind you, or you don't have someone giving you the stink eye because you pulled out your ID to look through the naughty binder.
Yeah.
So, typically, usually what I would do is if I have the space, and usually my neighbor's cool with it because I always ask if it's okay with the neighbor. I'll usually try to put them kind of behind my table to look at the binder if they're like uncomfortable looking at it, you know, in the alleyway. But you know, and it's just a sense of privacy for people when it comes to not for content. So that's why I feel like it makes it harder to sell.
Yeah, I think the only products that I've seen sell well that are not safe for work are usually comics, where they're easier to like hide in the bag or something. And generally, you know, like, you know, if you're an artist that does like not safe for work comics, like people know what you're there for. They're not gonna like, they're just like, yeah, that's a little bit more private. That's like, everybody has like, listen, 50 Shades of Grey, openly a porn book. No one's gonna judge you for having like, not many people are gonna judge you for having like an adult comic. So I mean, that in that regard, that's fine. But if you have like a standee or like a docu that's like openly not safe for work, or like adult, people have like, you know, people make like, you know, like it's less of a taboo. But you remember like in the early days of like the internet, where people used to like bully people, fans of the internet that were a little more open, fans of the, like what's it called, anime, that were very open about their certain taste. And like to an extent, people still make fun of like those people that have like crazy decals of their waifu and stuff. The general public keeps their own stuff private. You know, you're not gonna be openly like sharing that kind of stuff, where it's like if you go to like their home, they'll have like their anime statues and stuff, and people will share that in their own comfort, but nobody's like openly like having that kind of stuff like out in the open, because it's like nobody's gonna go to jail. It's not illegal. It's just like you know, it's the awkwardness of stuff that people would rather avoid, or like, you know, having questions being asked, people judge you and stuff. Even for me, like, even for me, it's a problem. Like I have to field all these questions, not because I have not safe for work stuff, but because of the nature of my work. Like I have stuff that I have on standby when people ask that I just show, which thankfully I've done like some work where I'm just like, okay, well, here I've been doing this UI stuff, or I've been doing like this dumb stuff to family members who start asking questions and stuff.
Yeah, that's always been an interesting topic. You know, trying to get, you know, explain to the family what it is you do for a living. And I usually try to just say, oh, I just do art, and here's some stuff that's not porn. There you go. So, but I guess it works out in that sense for me, because I do have art that, you know, wholesome and is, you know, the style I have too is also very just cute. So it could go either way. So when I do artist alleys and stuff like that, it I can switch it up. You know, I can have it just be safe for the kiddos and whatever. But if I do something big like Otakon or ASEN or something like that, then I know people are going to be looking for certain things, and then I feel more comfortable pulling out that material. But
Yeah. And I mean, let's be honest. You're a lot more vanilla than I am. For me, it's a lot harder to.
Oh yeah.
For me, it's a lot harder to be like, okay, so sit down. You're gonna have to sit down for this. So I generally just pull up something and like people stop asking questions. Because here's the funny thing: once it starts making you money, like good money, where like it's livable wage, they don't bother you as much, or they don't ask as much questions, because it's like, oh, okay, like they take notice and they're cool with it because it's making you money. And I'm not like, a lot of people like on the internet will like take the Twitter and be like, you see my parents or like my family or like whatever, and it's not out of place. I know it's not out of place of like genuine jealousy or like hate or anything. It's just genuine concern, because parents are generally like that. They worry you know, that you're not like making livable wage, or like that my stuff might lead to like whatever. And you know, once you start making money and you're like, you know, living like you're like at least happy about what you're doing and stuff, then they're not as worried. Unless you have like religious parents, and then they might be, you know, asking you a lot of like stuff, and you're just kind of like. But generally speaking, like I can't speak for everyone's family. I think that's the general vibe usually that I've seen, where it's like it's out of concern, not out of like fuck you, like, you know, that's not. I don't think that's ever been the deal, at least for me.
Yeah. Well, I will say, like, so fortunately for my dad, so that's been fun. It kind of goes in the whole line of like, are you making a livable wage? You're happy doing what you're doing? Okay, cool. That's all I need to know. I don't need to know all the other details. As long as you are making money doing what you love to do and you guys can afford yourself, then he's cool. And then of course my mom and my stepdad are super supportive too. Like, they'll just be like, oh, what are you working on now? Oh, wow, that's big. Or whatever.
Moms are great. Moms are great.
Yeah.
You know that this is a little bit of a tangent, but my mom started watching anime, and
that's what's up.
My brother like finished watching. Have you ever seen Violet Evergarden?
No, but I want to. It looks amazing.
So my brother finished watching it, and my brother's like, we got to get my mom to watch this. And I was like, are you really sure? I don't know if she's gonna be. She watched the whole thing and she's like, I really liked it. And the Violet Evergarden movie was in Netflix, and the way that like my room is the studio, because I had to move back from France due to like personal and like COVID and that kind of stuff. So that was fun.
Right.
But like I live in the studio, like the biggest studio of the house, so I have like my office, and I bought like the biggest TV, so everyone in the house always wants to come to my room, because my pull-out couch, which is my bed, it has been my bed for a long while, it happens to be the most comfortable place in the house. And she'll come up and just like, are you doing anything? I'm like, well, not anything. And like I was playing Zelda, and I think it was like Saturday, and she's like, I want to watch the movie of the anime that I just watched. And it like what shocked me is that it came out of her own initiative.
Okay.
It wasn't like my brother told him to watch it. She's like, oh, you know, the movie was here, so I want to see it. She also wanted to see the Witcher anime, and I was just like, what is going on? And she was like, she turned to me and like watching the movie, and she's like, you should really make an anime. I think you would make a very good anime. And I was just like, thanks, Mom, but I don't I like games better. And she's like, oh, then you should make a game. It's like, I'm working on it.
It's like, trust me, I'm getting there. I'm
Yeah,
working on it.
I'm working on it.
Taking
It's taking. I gotta keep. It's
takes
taking
a
its.
little longer than.
Yeah. She's like, oh, okay. I don't play video games, but I wish you make an anime so that I can watch it. 'Cause video games make her sick. So it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I tried getting her to play Breath of the Wild, but she's like, no, I can't. I'm sorry. And I was like, that's fine.
So certain games make me sick, but you know, for the most part, I can play video games.
Yeah, she likes playing. Like, I figured she would like Animal Crossing, but she's like, no, it's gonna have to be something where, I ease her into it because it's 3D and like 3D makes her like dizzy.
Yeah. See, I know it's weird. Borderlands made me sick. Like that one actually made me sick, and it sucks because I know it's fun, but I can't play it for a long time. My husband, he'll play Skyrim, and I love like watching him and listen to him play with it, but I can't sit and play it myself,
Okay.
or else I'll get sick.
I was playing a game that God, what game was it? Oh, my viewers are gonna give me shit for it, but I was playing Ultra Kill, and that game is like very fast paced, and like every time I played it, after I finished playing it, I had a headache because it's like I think it's a Zoomer game, and I apologize profusely for sounding like a boomer, but we're both 30, right? So it's like inevitably that's just our lingo now. It's a Zoomer game, and it just like everything goes by like super fast, and it's like my audience is asking me to use a mouse and keyboard, and I'm like I can't like I'm sorry.
No, I have controllers.
Yeah, I have to use a controller, and like I'm very good at using controller with like in a game like Halo. But if it's a newer game that's not built around like it's built around like competitiveness and like using control like mouse and keyboard, I'm not like I suck at it because it's like the amount of reaction time that it requires me to have is not is not ideal for me. I'm probably just not gonna do it. It's just like I can't, and it's the reason like I want to pick up Ultra Kill again. Because I like infuriating my audience a little bit, and I want to mess with people, but I can't. It gives me headaches because it's like it's too fast.
Yeah, I don't know. I can never get into like the Call of Duty or I mean I couldn't get into Halo either. I don't know why. I feel like that to me is fast paced because it's like you're just rushing around trying to shoot and stuff. And it's not much like I'm not against shooter games. I think that the concept of it being a battle royale free for all is I feel like that is too fast paced for me. My reaction time's not that great.
Mine isn't either. I just play I don't like playing multiplayer. I play the Halo campaign because it's one of my favorite stories, so that's the only thing I play. I tried playing Overwatch like years ago, and like I got okay at it, but games that have like a sort of competitive angle to it, and it's like team based, I feel really bad after because it's like I drag my entire team down and stuff like that. Like I can't. I played the new Gundam game. That it's kind of like it's like a ripoff of Overwatch, and I couldn't do it. I was just like, no, I can't. Like the people that I'm friends with that play it are so into it and so into Gundam that I was just like I can't. Like I can't get like I think mechas are cool in a concept way, but I can't get into the whole like competitive angle because they like they're like, oh fuck, we're losing, and I'm just like sitting there like a potato, and I'm like,
yeah. See, I don't know if you could tell by the everything, but I'm a huge Metal Gear Solid fan. So that is the game that I play like religiously. I religiously play Metal Gear Solid.
Are you excited for the remake of 3?
Okay, yeah, like I am excited for it. It's gonna be interesting to see what they do.
But it's not Kojima.
It's not Kojima. But I did say that it was bringing back the original, like the original voices. So, because I know a couple, I want to say it was sometime last year, Josh Keaton was teasing about playing Ocelot again.
Oh shit.
So, yeah. And then, we were talking about this in my Discord earlier, actually. That the voice actress that played Ava went under like a pseudonym, and so nobody knows who actually played her originally, because the name that was in the game, it was not her real name, and they never released like who actually played her. So that's going to be interesting to see if they like bring her back or something like that. And then of course everyone's got the question of if it's David Hayter or Keith Sutherland gonna play Snake.
It's gonna be David Hayter. Kiefer Sutherland is too expensive.
Yeah, that's true. So, but I'm cool for David Hayter. So, like that's. So I met him. He's nice.
The thing about Kiefer Sutherland is that it was intentional, the choice of having him, not because they hated David Hayter. It's because Venom Snake is not Snake.
Yeah.
At least that's the excuse. At least.
That's what they say.
Yeah.
But yeah, I believe it. So I 100% would believe that that's, you know, one of the reasons. But then, you know, it brings up Ground Zeroes, and I could just go. I could get into all sorts of stuff with Metal Gear. I'll spare it. But yeah, so I am excited for the game. I am excited for like the Master Collection, because then now I can play the games, which is super exciting. But yeah, I mean, I'll sit here and I'll work on art, and I'll just put on like a live play of it, or you know, something from YouTube, like a gameplay of it, and I'll just sit and work and just listen to it.
My favorite playthrough of that game is are you familiar with Vinny Vinesauce?
No.
So he's an interesting streamer. His playthrough is my favorite one. Okay. But I can share it later if you want. But it's a really interesting one. I'm just remembering years ago. Do you remember that one time where in 2016 when Shia LaBeouf had that like exhibition in New York where he had the camera with the He Will Not Divide Us thing? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do actually.
There was someone that came dressed as Snake, and he showed up at like 3 a.m. or something like that, and he started singing the theme song of Metal Gear Solid 3. And it was just like the dumbest thing ever, but it's like it's one of those things where it's something innocuous, but it's like ingrained in your mind forever. And my brain will categorically just go back to it every now and then. It's like,
oh my god. But yeah. What else? I like Pokemon. I like to play Pokemon. That's fun.
Did you play Neopets?
I did play Neopets. They are so dead. They're so dead now.
I
also used to play Gaia Online too.
Oh my god. I did too. Our age is showing. Holy shit.
Yep.
I used to spend so many hours trying to like get anything because I couldn't buy anything. Because it was one of those things where the internet was very new, but the scams were vast. And my parents just didn't trust the internet at all. And I could not get like a subscription for RuneScape. When I was 14, I think.
My brother played RuneScape.
I love RuneScape. When I was growing up, I was like 14 or 15. I went to a summer camp for making video games, and I won first prize. I can't even. I think every like end of term, because I went for 2 terms. they give like a prize to the most recognized like student or something, and I won the one for, it was like a Blizzard week where you were working with Blizzard's engine and you had to design maps and stuff like that and think about enemy placement and stuff. And the guy that was my trainer was very cool and he loved all my stuff. And he's like, yeah, here's a prize. And it was like all the everything up to that point for WoW. It was like all the expansion passes, 33-month trial, like all of that. And when it was so cool. And when I got home, I installed it. First of all, my PC couldn't run it because we had like a very terrible PC, and I had a Mac because I was like what I asked when I turned 15. So that was dead. And when I finally found a way to play it, the 30-day free trial expired, obviously. And then when I asked my parents, it's like they were like, nope. And so I couldn't even sell it because no one in my school or no one that I was friends with played WoW. Because
oh my God,
RuneScape was free. Why the fuck would they play WoW when you have to pay $10? Everybody was on the same boat. No parent wanted to pay for the subscription. Only like 2 or 3 rich kids that I was friends with that were really, really obsessed with RuneScape, but they made money out of RuneScape. Like they would spend like an entire weekend just like grinding accounts, and then they would sell them for like $100, $200. Back then, we're talking like 15 years ago. Yeah. That was money.
Yeah, like that was a big deal.
Yeah. Oh shit. Yeah. Like you're making money out of accounts and stuff, and they're like trying to like say that they like, you know, they'll ban the accounts. Like, they're not gonna. Like IP tracking wasn't really that much of a big deal back then. Now it is. Now like, you know, an account will be like, hey, you were like in Malaysia a few minutes ago, and now you're in the United States. What's up with that?
Yeah. So, but yeah, I don't like. I know, like, I never got a chance to play RuneScape, like my brother did. And I think there was something else they played, but I really can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, I was dork. I did Neopets and Gaia, and
the only thing I didn't like about Neopets is that it made you feel bad for being poor. Because you had, it's so bad. It's like I was always in the soup kitchen, but then if you had like 1 coin more than the soup kitchen allowed, you're fucked. Because it's like, oh, how do I feed my Neopets now? I can't get stuff from the soup kitchen because I am 1 coin above like the maximum.
Yeah,
it was so annoying.
You just wanted to take care of your pets, but then like you could let them go and they would be so sad and they would just like run off to the horizon or something. It was crazy.
Yeah, that entire thing was there's a content creator, or there's 2. I'm not sure if it's Jenny Nicholson or Drew Gooden, because Drew Gooden has a wife that she still plays Neopets. And no, it's too wide. It needs to be thinner. But he he's still married. He has a wife that still plays Neopets, and she hey Necro, she did a whole like video talking about Neopets and things that you can do and stuff, and it was like surprisingly in depth, but I was just like, it's still like a web browser game. They should have like gone like full on mobile at this point, where they had like an app that they keep updating. Like there's a lot of gacha games that do like what Neopets try to do, like more efficiently, and it's less it tortures you mentally a lot less than what Neopets does.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Can you guess who this is?
Oh, the drawing?
Yeah.
I am gonna go out on a limb and say that it's Hikaru.
Yeah.
Yay!
I'm gonna see if I add another layer.
So I
Yeah.
feel like just awkward sketching. I have no idea what I'm doing.
Oh no, it's fine. We're just hanging out.
Yeah. So cute. I'm so bad. I gotta finish the pilot for the manga. I'm getting
Yeah, how's that?
stubborn.
How's that going?
I feel like lately it's been going a little better because now I kind of have more of like, I finally put the foot down. I was like, okay, I need to get this done and I can't waste any more time on it. So I'm just getting the pilot figured out. So I know my poor Discord folks, they've been waiting a long time. So
That's the one you showed me.
but they also, yeah. So because it was the story of I wasn't sure if I should do a comic or if I should do a game.
Yeah.
It was, yeah, and I'm not sure, still not sure, but I don't know. I feel like for Mystic Waters, it's been a little easier for me to. I have more of a definitive story for Mystic Waters, so it's very more linear for me. Whereas Kitsune Kiss is still kind of like this idea that's floating around, but I mean, I've been story building and world building and stuff, but I don't know. Like, I feel like there's something holding me back from, being as confident about it as I wish I was. I'm not sure, but I guess maybe it's just because like the pilot is something that's just sort of on a whim, where it's like, oh, I'll do this pilot, and if it works out, then that's great. But if not, then I didn't waste that much time with it. But for Mystic Waters, I mean, it's very chronological. Like, I have so much material for it already. I just feel like it's easier for me to pick up and continue working on it.
Okay.
But yeah, it's just personal battles, like personal struggles to go, get through.
Okay. Yeah, I think that the thing about video games is that, at least for stuff that's like visual novel like, not every game is like this, but I think that for stuff that's like story driven, like visual novels, I generally think that harem centered stories are much better. Not always, like there's some really good ones that are not, but I think that if you're gonna have like a single story character, it's gonna be a little bit more linear, and it's harder to build a game around that unless you're having like Cooking Mama. Like, you're gonna have to have like a lot of elements, but that's mostly like because personally I'm not huge on visual novels, and I like if I work on a visual novel, I try to do something different that's less distracting, that's more distracting, and it's more game than text. I don't know. I think, have you ever played Nekopara?
Actually, I watched a couple years ago. I watched Flux actually play it. He was doing a playthrough of it on his channel a long time ago. So I've seen the concept and stuff for Nekopara, and then I know that they just came out with an anime for it.
Yeah, I tried playing it. I couldn't. I don't know why. It was just one of those things where I played it and like I'm doing like again I'm doing like research for my own visual novel, but it's also at the same time like I think for me, like once I've played one, I think I've seen them all.
Yeah.
Because I like the one visual novel that I played, and I still hate them to this day, is the Sakura games.
Yeah.
They're the worst. It's just everything. And I played it and I was just like, okay, here's one example of how not to do it. But the way that Flux is doing it, the way that what's his face? Cyber Unique is doing it, it's a little bit more engaging because there's more visual elements to it. There's more style, there's less linearity, it's more open-ended.
Yeah.
That
And
I'm
then
a,
I know that like he was working on like the assets and stuff, like the Easter eggs and the items that you can actually find. So it's not just something that's like point A, B, C, and then you're at the end. It's definitely a little bit more freedom to roam around. You can find the hidden items. There's like there's alternate endings. There's alternate scenes to unlock. Like it's it's not just very linear, which is personally I feel like that's my problem with some stuff is that I feel like I have a very linear way of thinking, like it's like beginning, middle, end. But as far as story, like for me, for storytelling, I feel like that's kind of when you read a book, it's beginning, middle, end. But
yeah,
like for games, I feel like there's a lot more freedom, the open world concept and stuff like that. So
you go to the visual novels for writing, art, not any real game. Yeah, I agree here. The thing is, like, when I play video games, I have a very specific notion. Okay, one of my favorite visual novels that I've played is Toradora. Do you remember the anime?
yes.
Okay, so there was a PSP game that was really, really, really good. Had multiple endings. Had the same thing that Flux is trying to do, where it's like you roam around, find items and stuff that will help you get certain endings or open certain interactions. And that was one of my favorite ones. I really, really loved that visual novel, and that stuck with me. Because I was just like, okay, if I play more visual novels, it has to be like this. And like it happened to be that the next one that I picked up was a Sakura game, and then I was just like, okay, fuck that, no.
Right.
And it completely killed my entire interest in the genre for like a good few years. But then I saw I've been seeing what Koopa Games is doing, and I'm just like, okay, I'm interested, even if it's like, and honestly, like, even if it has like some of the loot elements, like I'm more interested in like the delivery of the narrative.
Yeah.
It's my biggest thing.
Yeah, like I feel like because I know you're talking about like Cookie Mama and stuff like that. I like games that there's a task. So like it's kind of, I don't want to say cliche or whatever, but you probably have heard of Lily's Garden, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so it's a story, but to play through the story, you got to do like the puzzles and stuff. So I like that kind of a way for a game, just because it can get repetitive. Don't get me wrong. Like with the puzzles and stuff, that's repetitive. But in order to move the story along, you are assigned a task. So in order to do that, you got to keep doing the task. So I feel like that for a concept of a game would be good, but you got to execute it right, or again, it's just going to feel repetitive.
One of the things that I want to do for this visual novel that I'm writing for is have like every chapter has like a different thing. So it's not going to be like one singular, like you're not going to have like the same mini game over and over. But it's like, for example, one like, and they tie into like with where it's going in the story. Like, for example, the first chapter is going to have a scene where one of the characters has to go shopping with the main character, and they have to go through the department store. And are you familiar with the SpongeBob episode of the perfume department?
Yes.
So I was thinking that it would be funny if I had like a original Metal Gear type, like the top down one, like an original Metal Gear scene where you have to sneak around and avoid being shot at with perfumes. Even if it's like a short sequence, but it's something that you can do that's like, oh, and it's gonna be like a peak where it's memorable that's happening. And I'm learning how to use the Godot engine for making games and learning how to do that, because it's like I'm gonna do stuff like that, stuff that like I like something that would make me. I want to make games that I want to play. So if I have a visual novel that has like weird mini games, it tells like a fun story, and it has like all these like little things that you can do, and you can like have start and stop points, then yeah, I would definitely do something like that.
Yeah. So I mean that, and then that's, you know, because I know, just kind of batting around, but I know for Kitsune Kiss, like I've got 7 fox girls, and then there's, you know, the guy, so it has like that typical harem feel.
Mm-hmm.
But the pilot is centered around the idea of them doing like a little kitsune cafe type thing where they're trying to raise money because they got this threatening letter in the mail for the shrine that they're working at, but it was all just a big misunderstanding. But basically, that, you know, I was thinking in an element of a game, I was just like, oh well, that would be fun. They would go and they would serve tables, and then you would earn the money that way and things like that. So I was kind of thinking like, you know, I don't know if you remember the Facebook games or the MySpace games where you would run your own restaurant and you would take people's orders and you would like,
Yeah.
and that was part of the game. But like Farmville, but it was it was like a kitchen themed one. But freaking Farmville.
Farmville, oh my god. Farmville, all those Facebook games just died.
Yeah, they did.
Mafia City was a big one.
Yeah. So, Roller Coaster Tycoon was fun too. I enjoyed Roller Coaster Tycoon.
Oh, Lemonade Tycoon 2 is pretty fun.
Yeah.
There was a game service. I forgot. I don't remember what it was, but it was like an early version of Steam, but it wasn't Steam. It was a platform where you downloaded it on your computer and you could buy so many games, and they had the Sonic games. They had Super Collapse. Did you ever play Super Collapse?
I did not.
It's one of my favorite puzzle games because it was pretty much it was like one of the OGs for when you have enough pieces that are together, you press on it and it deletes them.
Yeah.
It's not a match 3, but it's more. It's around that field. They don't automatically disappear. You have to click on it. There's no moving around. You have to like plan a little better. And they had some puzzle ones and stuff. Like my dad and I used to play that like for hours on end. But Super Collapse was pretty fun. But yeah, I remember that. And there was like a lot of like games like that. I don't know. There's so many like so many different choices of games, and I think like the reason why, oh my god, the thing is like a lot of puzzle games, when you see a lot of these like Lily Gardens and stuff like that, the issue is that they are done because it's cheaper to make them because there's already a framework to hang these games on.
Yeah. No, I agree with that.
Yeah, so it's like you have a lot of, you can literally go to Unity and just pick up match 3 and that's it, drag and drop, and then like all you have to do is build the assets and then that's it, you're done.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough. So I applaud everybody that's working on games right now with Koopa. It's just it's an undertaking. Like it's not an undertaking, overtaking. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's an undertaking.
Yeah. So it's just, but I mean, it's gonna be great when they're all done. But yeah.
Yeah, you'll do fine. I think once, I think for you, you're kind of like in the same case as I am, where even though like a lot of your early start has been like fan content because that's the way that pins and all those items sell.
Yep.
Because it's like brand recognition. You're still like, people still really like your OCs. So a lot of your career is built around your own content and stuff, and it's a really good feeling when people just keep requesting your characters. They want to see more content with your stuff, and it's like, yeah. And I think like once your comics out, I think more of it, like more pins and stuff of your characters or potentially to sell.
Yeah, definitely.
The problem with that kind of stuff though is that we always want to reach like a broader audience, and you typically would have to print less of your own stuff and more of the stuff that is things that people recognize. And that's just
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a challenge because, like, I know I think it was Otakon this a couple years ago. I was a part of the Artist Alley that had to be 50-50. Like, you had to have 50% of your content was fan based, and then the other 50% of your content was all original. Luckily, my stuff is pretty 50-50, which is usually how I try to keep it.
Mhm.
So it does help when it's a nice buffer, because then you have like your original stuff that you can showcase, but then you have some of the fan art stuff to fall back on for those who are just like, oh, I'm looking for this one specific character, and you happen to have her.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, I know with the pillowcases, I started off with my original characters, which were the Kitsune Kiss girls. I had Hikaru, Mizuki, and Emi done, and I was really surprised by like how receptive they were to people, because they just said, I really like how the purple one looks, and like, oh, the green one looks super sexy, let me have her. And so that brought interest into who those characters were. So every time I'd go to a show and they'd say, who are those characters? I'm like, well, those are my original characters, and it's a part of a story that I'm working on. And they'd ask, oh, well, what's your story about? And then I would just tell them the very bare minimum concept of like what the story was, and they're like, okay, I think I'm gonna take the purple one, or I'm gonna take the green one, or whoever. So
Yeah.
it was nice to kind of have that general gauge of people that are interested in original content. And it seems like, as I'm in more recent years, that's what people are actually looking for. They're looking for more indie type stuff. They're not just wanting the mainstream stuff. They're wanting something that's original.
Yeah.
So that's always,
because the thing is, like, a lot of people will go to the top artists, or like the most popular artists, for the fan content. I feel like you'll go, for example, for an artist that does a lot of fan content, is very popular in that regard. They'll buy that stuff, right? But for other artists that they, when you go to the Artist Alley, you want to see, like, at least for me, but that's because, like, I'm an artist that does like original content oftentimes, more than fan content, and I want to see like what characters are out there, what ideas are out there and stuff. Or a lot of the people that I'm very good friends with are mostly like original creators, because you tend to vibe more. Like, I'm not saying, like, I'm friends with a really talented artist that for them it's more interesting to draw fan content, and that's fine. They're really cool and I love them. For me personally, I tend to vibe with a lot of people that just like seeing my original content, because for them, like, I think it feels like refreshing to see someone that's kind of like so against the grain, because I typically like am the kind of person that, like, there may be like a huge trend on Twitter and like people say you should do this, and I'm like, okay, maybe, and then I just don't do it, just because, like, I don't know, like, I'm one of those people that I have to wake up one morning and be like, I'm gonna do that, otherwise it's not gonna get done.
oh yeah. So I mean, there's thousands of trends, and it's like, there's stuff that's really cool. It's like, oh, I would totally love to do that, and then either I just don't have the time for it, or I forget about it. So,
and another thing is,
kids, it's hard to make that time.
Yeah, Zen is gonna chew our ears off, because he was just talking about this earlier, about following trends and stuff, because it helps the algorithm. But for you and I think because we both, like, I'm working on games and I'm working on projects and I'm working on getting some products finally made, right? We have you have like a limited amount of time due to having kids and stuff like that. So like every second that we have, we're gonna do something on purpose, something that has an end use, and it's not just putting stuff out on the internet or trying to get an audience. But you have to do that a little bit, but it's also like, well, you kind of like have to find a balance. But it's like we're gonna keep like the time that we have, we're just gonna keep using on stuff that we can apply to other stuff. Like,
Yeah.
it's hard. For example, right now I'm working on a drawing for the VTuber Milky that you've seen me draw like oftentimes a lot of stuff for her. But
Yeah.
she made a tweet and I shared the art earlier in our meeting, and I was just like, oh, here's something that I'm working on. And like originally it was just meant as a sketch, just like finish it, but then it's also like a way for me to do like character design and actually like it's really constructive for me to do stuff like that because it's coming from a creator that's indie, and she has a person like it's gonna have a more of an impact because it's more personal to her than it would be if it was straight up like, oh, can you draw Ganyu? And I want to keep building off my brand to where the stuff that I make, it feels more personal, it feels more unique in certain aspects, and it feels more like when people come to my stuff, they're kind of right at home, even if some of the stuff is a little bit lewd, but I tend to be like very wholesome lewd, and I want people to just be more like they feel like right at home when they see my stuff. That's
Yeah, definitely. So, like, the thing, like, because we touched on it earlier, it was like, brand yourself. And I feel like this week specifically, it was so weird how that came up in the meeting because I was trying to do that this entire week. I'm just like, okay, I need to like brand myself. What do people know me for? What is something that people like about my art? So it was just very, it was kind of creepy. I was just like, how did they know that that's what was happening with me or something? So, but yeah, I mean, just branding yourself
Mm-hmm.
to what people are interested in. Like, because right now, I could ask, there's a couple, like, I know Iro is in my Discord. I could easily ask him, like, hey, what's something you know me for? He'll probably type in chat. It's going to be either mermaids or fox girls. And that's pretty much what people know me for. So, is just, my mermaids is pretty much what set people in the direction of me, but then I created the Kitsune Kiss girls and the fox girls and stuff. And then they're just like, oh, we love them. We have our favorites. So, yeah, that like in the Discord, it's hilarious. They'll just go like, Mizuki for the win, or no, Emmy's best girl, and it's just like you guys are ridiculous.
You got your own what's that vampire movie? Do you remember? You got your own Edward Cullen situation, but with Fox
Oh
Girl.
yeah,
Team
yeah.
Team Edward
Team
and
Edward or Team Jacob.
yeah.
So yeah, for sure. I mean, and so that's kind of what I've been tackling like for the best part of the year. For my monthly subscriptions, people will just be like, "Hey, draw Shirori doing this," or draw, Hikaru doing that, and I'm just like, okay, they're my characters, so I don't mind. So, but yeah, so I mean, it's kind of nice that people they recognize my stuff, but I'm just that whole branding thing kind of comes in a full circle, as far as like what exactly stands you out from everybody else, especially in the big cesspool of Twitter.
Yeah, that reminds me, I want to say like 3 years ago, maybe a little more, I used to have this one person that loved one of my horse girls so much that he emailed me every month. I will give you as much money as you want so that you draw this character. And I was very flattered because they really loved my character. And it was just like, whatever it is, I need to see more of this character. I love her. And I was just like, I'm really, really happy you love her. And like, I obliged a few times, but it gets like, in that kind of case, it gets a little hard because you kind of, I can't be commissioned that often because as much as I love drawing her and coming up with new situations for her, I have other characters that I need to draw. I have other commissions and stuff, and it's like, take as long as you need and stuff. And it's like, the thing is, I don't want to be in the situation where that's why I don't charge up front for commissions anymore, because I usually take some commissions and I end up being like, okay, this is on you're on the list, but you haven't paid, so if I can't get to it, you're just gonna be waiting for a while. And it's like, even if it's slightly irresponsible, and I'll admit it, it's also more easier for me that if I get caught up with work for Koopa, or if I get caught up with my own stuff where I need to start working on my game or like on certain projects and stuff, I'm not tied down to certain things. Because it's I'm like very inconsistent with not quality, just delivering commissions in general, because it'll like I'll get sidetracked with some stuff that just takes priority for a variety of different reasons. But certain things like me working on art for other people and stuff, even if I take my time with it, I end up always like deliver once I start. I'll take my time, but I want to deliver something that's like worth the wait, or the quality that they paid for it. Sometimes I'll even deliver a little bit more. Like, even if someone paid for a sketch, sometimes like I'll go above and beyond, because usually, like, as an artist, you get caught up with what you're working on, and you want to deliver something that you like and they like. And so
so and I feel kind of bad because I ended up taking, like, it happened earlier this year, and luckily, the clients have been very patient and been very understanding. But I ended up trying to take commissions right before I gave birth to my second son, and I was getting a head start on it, and then I had my son, and then I just completely tapered off. And so clients were waiting for like 3 months for their stuff, and I felt so bad. But it was just, I did, like, I'm not gonna say in my defense, but like, I did give a warning. I was like, hey, I'm gonna try to take commissions, but I am about to deliver a child, so you might get your commission a little later. So, and of course everyone's like, yeah, we totally get it, we totally understand, like, it's not a big deal. And of course I had my kid, and I got busy with my kid, and they understood. But then for this past round of commissions that I've been taking, I told people that if you need something done by a deadline, please tell me, because I feel like I work better under that kind of pressure. Where it's like, it's great that there's clients that understand that life gets in the way and that you can get busy, but you also want to hold yourself accountable too for the commissions that you take on. Yeah. So I have one person who has commissioned me, and they said that they did need a timeline, or that they needed it done by a certain time. And that's why I've been working pretty hard on one of the commissions to get it done definitely in time for them, because that it's important to them to have it done by a certain time. So I prioritize that above it. Hi, you know, it could not possibly be your commission I'm talking about. But so, but it's important to them. So I'm like, okay, they have to have it done. And I feel like, to me, I work better under that kind of pressure, because I know that there's something on the line,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why I like business commissions more. And I like doing stuff for Koopa, because generally they're like, well, there is a set deadline, and I set it for myself, and I get very productive. But at the same time, whenever like someone hands me something, it's like, deliver it when you can. It's like, no, give me a day.
Please give me a deadline.
Yeah.
Don't just say, take your time, don't worry about it. So do it when you can. No, please give me a deadline.
Yeah, you need like for anyone that wants to work with artists, you need to understand we suck at deadlines or delivering. I'm gonna say this, like you can back me up on this. We suck at delivering. If you don't tell us a time frame, we're free spirits. You have to tell people deliver this. And then yeah, some people have like good organizational skills of having like Trello and that kind of stuff, but you have to tell artists that there's a specific deadline or a time frame for something, because believe you me, we will take our time with stuff. Some days we'll wake up one day, I'm not feeling this that much. I'll just do something else. It's you have to.
Because okay, so I'll be real. I feel like that's my problem when it comes to me creating my comics, is because they are for, you know, mostly for me. I always put them on the back burner because something else comes up. Commissions, shows, client work, anything like that. Whereas my comics so far, I feel like I don't have a big enough audience to have a dependability where people are like waiting on the edge of their seat for my comics. So I don't have that sense of urgency to create and get them done. Whereas with, you know, commissions and things like that, it's a little bit more, you know, there's a little bit more incentive for the work because I'm being paid for it, you know. Whereas with my comics, it's just something that I can do during my free time because I'm not really being paid for it. So at least for me, like with commissions and conventions, things like that, there's more urgency because I've been paid for the work that I'm doing. Whereas with comics, it's not.
Yeah. Okay. One thing that I've noticed is that, for example, my parents work real estate, but the way that they work it is that my dad does the bulk of the work, where he gets the clients, he does all this stuff, and my mom does the management, sets the deadlines, reminds my dad of. My dad is like horrible at dates, so she'll organize a schedule and remind him and stuff. Not sure like if your husband can play like kind of like a role of an editor, where he can be like, hey, how about you do like one comic page by the end of the week or something like that. It's not like a very involved thing, but it's like something that you might find might help, where you have someone that's very close to you like help you out in terms of like setting some deadlines or stuff like that. And they don't have to be hard deadlines where he's gonna like come in, bang the, like, you know, your door down and be like, why haven't you delivered? But it's kind of the reason why in manga, in comics and stuff, having an editor is very tantamount, because the editor can be like, he's the one, he or she or they or whatever are the ones that knock on the door and are like, you got, you know, knock knock motherfucker, you gotta deliver.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, the industry for that over there is just, woo. They gotta push some stuff out for sure.
Yeah.
So, but you know, and then I saw a documentary about this on YouTube or whatever, but I can't remember the manga, but it was a gentleman. He was working on a manga for like Shonen Jump or something, and it was like an actual series, and they had to deliver. I'm gonna say it was 24 pages, about 24 pages, which is a chapter, in a 5-day time frame, and he had like a 5-person team. So
I think I know which one you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. So he would, you know, they all had specific jobs. Like one person would sketch it, one person would line art, someone would scan it or screen it, the other person would do the speech bubbles and etc. But they had a team to help them. Whereas I feel like for freelancers like me and you, we are our own team. So it would take us a little bit longer for us to, you know, create that content for people, because we are our own team, we are our own boss, we're our own editors, unless we do have friends or family who can offer their assistance. And sometimes people in the community even want to say, hey, if you want to just shoot over a page and I'll look it over and I'll give you, you know, my 2 cents or whatever, then they're helpful too.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's going back to the deadlines. That's pretty much, you got to be a little bit sterner with us artists, because we'll take our time, because we have a million other things that we are doing as well.
Our brains just also like melt. We just wander off. So
very true.
You know what helps with deadlines too? Conventions. When I lived in Japan, I tabled 2 conventions. One the first year I was there, and then the year after I went to another convention and I made another comic. So in 2 years I made 2 comics, and it was probably one of the most productive years I've had, because you're just like on a crunch, and when you put out one comic, you have like 2 to 3 days to yourself. But if you're gonna table at the same convention next year, you got to start planning a long time ahead. The first comic I put out, which is the one that I showed you, where the thick lines and stuff, that comic, I needed a friend of mine, a wonderful Japanese man. He helped me finish the comic, because I was just not gonna get it on time, because I was a teacher in the morning, and at night I got it home at like 3 in the afternoon, and so imagine, like, I had to wake up early in the morning to go to work. Not too early, like school started at 8:30, so it was not that bad, but still, like, I got home, I had to like work and then go cook dinner and then come back and work, and for like, when it was like 2 weeks away from the convention, I slept like nothing, because it was my first comic. So the work that was just piling up for me learn, and like he had to come in and help me with the what's it called, with the grayscales and the rendering, or like the grays and stuff. Like, I did all the lines and I sent it to him, and he would like finish some panels, do some corrections and stuff. It was so much work, and I was just astonished at the amount of work that manga artists put into like every week. And this took me like 2 months to put together, and these guys just take a week to put out 24 pages. I mean, they have a whole team, and they've done this for years, but for me it was just like and then I was just like, who the fuck would ever do this? And then I did it again next year. But it was such an interesting story, because I had to go print it myself the first time. There was a 7-Eleven that was open 24/7, and I had this like very lewd comic, and it was just this one guy working at the 7-Eleven at like 3 a.m, and I had 2 days to prepare for the convention, and I sat there for 3 hours, just like for 2 hours, just printing. The paper ran out at one point, and I cannot tell you the amount of dread that I felt when the paper ran out, because it was like I had to explain to this man that paper run out. They don't ask a lot of questions, but it's still the idea of having to go and ask, hey, the paper ran out. You know, especially being like a foreigner in Japan, and I'm just like, oh no. It's like, hey, can you refill this? And the guy's just like, and the last page that printed out was very explicit, and it printed on the bottom, and so the trays were on the bottom, so he had to come in, and I didn't want to take the papers because I didn't want to get them out of order, and so he came in. I know he saw it, like 100%. I know he saw that page, and I could do nothing about it. And then he opened the tray, put the papers in, closed it. He smiled at me, and I was so pissed, because I was just like, I had nowhere to hide, and he's just like, he smiled at me, and then he went back, and the thing kept printing, and I got like hungry and thirsty, and then I had to go to the counter again. It was just it was just like such an ordeal. And I did not have a stapler, and I had to like, oh wait, no, never mind. It was coincidental too that they have this service where Amazon sends packages to these konbinis, or like the markets, like 7-Eleven stuff, and my stapler had arrived to that same place too. So he knew what was going on, 100%. because he gave me that. I will never forget that smirk. And it was just one of those things where, yeah, I'm using Pixip's printing service next time, and so I did, and it was way more expensive, and I sold less. My original comic sold like 7 million times faster than the new one that I had made because everybody loved that first comic so much. But I remember, look, I also for those types of conventions when there's adult content, because of the censorship laws in Japan, when you print, you have to take them to someone that evaluates the work. So there's just a line. There's just a line of like thousand, like I want to say like 50 creators in line just to show the work that they've done for this. And I remember I got up, and the guy, like, mine had really thin lines in the censorship, and the guy just looks at me and he's just like, "They're really thin, you know that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I guess." And he's like, "Okay, I know you're a foreigner, but like for next time, you know, make him a little thicker." Not because I don't mind it. He's like, I don't want us to get into trouble. And I was just like, okay.
It's like, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I get that.
It's just funny, like, having a bureaucracy in like a not safe work space with a lot of artists, just like with piles of doujins, just like lining up to show them to like someone like that reviews it, just to make sure that it complies with the law.
Yeah, I mean, because I was gonna say, like, I mean, you could have super explicit content over here. I mean, as long as you see the IDs and stuff for it. But over there, I mean, you gotta put a little black bar over stuff. But yeah. So, well, I was about to say it's almost 9 o'clock. I actually need to start getting my boys ready for bed.
Oh yeah, and I have to start cooking dinner, and then I have to get back to work. Yeah, but no, thank you so much for hanging out, Haru. I hope I was helpful in some way, and you took something out of it. Same with the viewers. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, definitely.
It was a pleasure having you, and yeah, do you want to plug in your stuff real quick before we close the stream out?
Yeah, I suppose I can. So, you know, I probably should have had all that figured out. But anyways, so, I mean, if you want to like shoot me a follow or anything like that, I'm literally all over the place. Type in Haru Studios anywhere. You'll find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I have my own website. I'll just put it my website at least.
Yeah, put it up in the chat.
Yeah, and yeah. So I if you type Haru Studios into Google, you'll pretty much hit all of my accounts. I do have a subscribe star, so there's that too. And yeah, I know I mentioned it in the stream, but I do have a webcomic on Webtoons. You type in Mystic Waters, you can read the first 5 chapters for free. And yeah, so that's my pitch. If you like my content, just give me a follow.
Yeah, no, give her a follow. Her content's awesome. It's very wholesome. Lots of fox girls, lots of cute mermaids. Yeah, no. All right, you go take care of the boys. I will close out the stream, and again, thank you so much for hanging out, and yeah, I'm always available if you ever need any help.
Awesome. I definitely appreciate it, and I'll be seeing you around.
Yeah. All right. Well,
bye guys. It's good to see y'all. Hang out with y'all.
Yeah. Good night, Haru.
Good night.
All right. All right, everyone. Thanks for hanging out. I will walk you all out because I have to go eat dinner. So, everyone, thank you for hanging out. Have a wonderful night, and I will see you guys next stream. Bye.